Nation to Fit in 10. Welcome to day 53. 17 days to go, 2.5 weeks, and I'm going to remind you to keep sprinting. Keep sprinting till the very end, even past the date to when you come in for your final scan. Which, by the way, your final scan, I'll talk about ways to make your scan look a little bit better. I mean, we might as well do this, right? We might as well just take advantage of all the little things we can do to make the scan. It's not going to make the scan dramatically better, but if you're going to have a better scan, you might as well do the things that are going to help your scan. And I do want to mention them because generally speaking, people tend to do the opposite of what they should do. Like they'll do tons of exercise and then maybe they'll eat less before coming in for their scan. And this, of course, is going to make your scan look worse. Okay, so the scan only measures what it sees, and if it sees less water, especially less water in the muscle, it's definitely going to increase your body fat percentage. And this is just what I think, or this is just what I've seen. I also tend to see with the scan, at least with the InBody, the machine that I use, that if you come in and your muscle mass is down, the water in your muscle is down, which can be down for several reasons. Generally speaking, your fat mass will be read a little higher. So every time I've gone in, my muscle mass has been down. My fat mass, I always notice, is higher. So that's why I'm saying this, okay? And I've done probably 50 scans on that thing. We've had it for quite some time. So maybe not 50 scans, but I've done a lot. I've probably done for myself at least 20 or 30 scans. So every time I get on there and my fat mass is a little higher, typically my muscle mass is lower just for that reading. So just kind of interesting to note. Anyways, we'll talk about that in the near future. I didn't talk about the question about how much soreness is safe. Well, I did, but I talked specifically about muscle soreness, and I think that maybe this person was referring to joint soreness, so I'm not sure, because they were mentioning about soreness in joints. And so one thing I want to say about this is, just coming back to the training aspect, I know I touched upon this the last video or two, but when you train, especially if you're training for bodybuilding, if you're training to, not for bodybuilding, I mean, kind of you are, you just don't know it. I'm just using the wrong terminology. But you're training to, at the very least, maintain your lean body mass, if not improve your lean body mass. And whether you know it or not, this is something that you really want because it's going to help keep fat off, and it's going to help you to stay leaner even at rest, right? So, one thing I just want to say about this is that when you train in the fashion to stimulate the muscle as much as possible, you actually train it in a safer way because you're not focused on trying to move the weight from point A to point B. Yes, you are doing that, but ultimately what you're trying to do is to really hone in on the muscle or muscles at hand that are working, and you're really trying to utilize those areas of the body, those muscles, to drive the weight up. And so what this means is better control. Okay, because if there's momentum involved, the muscle's not going to work. It's not going to work as much, right? If you're bouncing from the bottom, if you're using some stretch reflex in your tendons, for instance, or you're physically bouncing from the bottom, as an example, another example, or what would be something else? You're just going faster on your tempo. This is going to be harder on the joints, and this is going to be less stress on the muscle, which is not what you would do if you were, trying to develop a muscle more, right? Generally speaking, not, right? We want to apply as much stress within reason to the muscle. We want to make the muscle work as hard as it can, right? I talked about this in, I think, yesterday's video, maybe the video before. You want to get the most out of the least. Okay, and that least being, obviously, we don't want to be using, feathers to lift. There's a happy medium with that least, but the point is we really want to get the most out of the weight that we are lifting before moving to that heavier weight. All right, so So again, that tempo will help to reduce the amount of strain on any joint. Okay, a slower tempo, a pause between the change in direction between movements. I tend to do this with my shoulders. I get some shoulder pain. So I tend to, for example, the bottom of a press, I will tend to do a pause on every single rep. Makes it harder, makes the muscle work harder. Can't move as much weight, at least not for as many reps, but stimulates the muscle better. Okay. Again, sleep is going to play a major role in this. Getting adequate amount of sleep and good quality sleep at that. And of course, your food is going to play a role. We talked about this with muscle recovery, but even joint recovery as well, right? We want to make sure we're getting a lot of nutrient-dense food, right? Real whole foods typically are much more nutrient-dense than your foods that are not real whole foods, that are what we would consider to be processed foods, generally speaking. Okay, I think I said maybe enough on that. Let's talk about, or let's answer this person's feedback. So they wrote, this is under name something specific you can improve upon for the following week. Taking it one day at a time, eating meals and not eating between meals. Waiting to eat until I get home. Being mindful of my mood and how it can trigger emotional and unnecessary eating or eating out. All right, so this is actually a very, very good point. And I even do this with myself, believe it or not. Sometimes I want to eat and I ask myself, am I actually hungry? Am I actually hungry? Like right now I want to eat. I am due for my next meal. I tend to eat every 3 hours. But am I actually truly hungry? Well, I feel hungry, but there's different levels to this as well, right? Now, the reality is you can get away for a long period of time without eating. And obviously your hunger is going to, the longer you go without eating, the hungrier you're going to get. And you're going to reach different levels of hunger, especially if you have low body fat, because you don't have really any reserves. But coming back to what this person wrote, it's always good to ask yourself why you want to eat. What is it that's driving you to eat? And are you truly hungry? And is that hunger reasonable? Meaning, what have you eaten for the day? How many calories have you eaten for the day? If you've eaten an excessive amount of calories, or maybe more than what you ought to, right? We should all have a reasonable number in mind, I think. Not too low, not too high. Somewhere, at least for this in the challenge, somewhere around the calories that you're having right now. Okay, maybe a bit more. We shouldn't be looking to really, really eat a ton of food above that. Okay, so you got to ask yourself why. Why are you going towards that food? Are you legitimately hungry? Do you legitimately need this? Or is this just more of a stress release, or just something where, you get some sort of great taste and, you get essentially a reward in the brain? Are you bored? Right? We need to look at these things. So, actually, interestingly enough, I just was listening to a friend of mine speak the other day. He got to go to some, small gathering with some very wealthy people. Ray Dalio being one of these people, if you're familiar with Ray Dalio. The thing he had mentioned, Ray Dalio and who's that motivational speaker? Tony Robbins, I think. And they were saying that actually, in fact, before they make any major decision, he didn't say major decision. They said actually before they make any decision, or with any decision that they make, they being Ray Dalio and Tony Robbins, they write down the reasoning in a journal. They journal the reason why they made the decision they did. Now, I'm assuming that they don't mean like, like why they chose to maybe go to the washroom now and maybe not 5 minutes later. I don't think they're writing down those reasons, but I think for any, decision that could affect your life, and I would expect that probably a lot of the things that they're writing are for some pretty minor decisions, believe it or not. They're writing down the reason for it. So this is very, very interesting, because if you know how you operate, because a lot of us, we don't really think about that, right? We certainly don't journal. I don't journal the decisions and why I make the decisions I do. But this can be really, broken down all throughout the day when you look at exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it gives you a better understanding of perhaps how you tick, and maybe, I would think certainly gives you a much more conscious understanding of what's triggering you, right? And then this allows us to make probably more wise decisions in our life, right? So kind of interesting. All right, 11 minutes. Let's get to the message of the day. Some very good questions, by the way, recently. I'm really impressed with these. There are some other great questions from this person that I read already, and I'll get to those tomorrow. Let's get to the message of the day, if my spreadsheet will open up for me here. All right, just slow to react here on this day 53. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Sometimes we just got to ask ourselves, am I still alive? Do I have a roof over my head? Do I have, money in my bank? Is there really any reason for me to be truly upset, truly stressed? Is there any reason for me to maybe, delve off my diet? Maybe, not show up to the gym, right? We got to be honest with ourselves, and sometimes change the way that you look at things. This is probably not the best example, but my one splurge in my life is the vehicle that I drive. It certainly cost me more than I think I should be spending on a car, based on how much I pay myself a year. And anyways, I got into a little fender bender. This was back before Christmas, and I just immediately told myself, get over it right away. Just get over it, because I was really I couldn't believe what happened, and it was really stupid. It was my fault. But immediately, the first thing I said to myself, you just need to get over this right away, because I knew that this was just going to eat at me. Okay, and I knew that it's not going to change anything if I get really pissed off, and whatever that leads me to do in the future or whatnot. I just told myself, it's done. Get it fixed and get over it. So maybe not the best example, but I think nonetheless something that we need to remind ourselves is, we got to always look at the big picture, right? Always look at the big picture. So anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself. For the love of God, give some gratitude, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow. See you guys.